it's Evelyn Jerome Alexandra with Magellan College Counseling, and today I'm going to give you a little College Admissions 101, just some basic sort of top line issues that you probably need to know if your child is in high school and you are approaching the college search process. So I'm going to share my screen here, and what we'll do for the live people, hi Tina. What we'll do for the live people is I will record the whole presentation and then I will shut off the recording and I will take questions from you live. And of course, for people watching on the playback, if you have any questions, you can always post them on the blog post or on our Facebook page. We try really hard to be really responsive when we get questions. Okay, so here we go. I will go sort of quickly, but again, if you have questions, I'm happy to go back and talk about whatever areas are of the most interest. So let's see, there we go. This is me, I'm Evelyn, and I am a certified educational planner, which means I've been doing this for a long time. I'm also an instructor in the UC Berkeley Certificate in College Counseling program. I got my own certificate in college counseling through UCLA about 10 years ago. I'm a member of several professional organizations that help me stay up to date on what's going on in college admissions. Obviously, lots of new information coming through the past 6 to 9 months. We've basically been on webinars constantly, probably as have you in your work. So one of the problems with doing like a college admissions 101 is that there is literally so much information that I cannot give you everything you need to know in an hour. So what I'd love to do is invite you to subscribe to our blog, to like our Facebook page, or to sign up to get our newsletter. We push tons and tons of information out there, honestly, just trying to help people understand, help people get accurate information. And I will tell you, I actually had somebody say to me this past fall, she emailed me and she said, we didn't hire you because we wanted to do it ourselves, but I can't thank you enough for all of the information that you put out on your blog. It really, really helped. And that made me feel really good. So there's a ton of information out there. And one of the things I discovered when I started giving presentations nearly 10 years ago is there's kind of two different ways to approach this process. And I'm not judging either one, right? There's no better or worse. It's whatever is right for you. But there are definitely limiting factors if you pick choice A. And if you pick choice A, you're looking for name, you're looking for prestige, and you are probably going to get the price that goes along with it. And I will talk a little bit about cost towards the end of this presentation. The second way to go about it is to think about your child as the center of the process and really think about who they are and what their talents are and what they want to do and what environment would be perfect for them, instead of starting with the name. And so that's kind of how I'm going to approach what I want to tell you today. The bad news is the numbers are what they are, and I'm not here to scare you, but the numbers are, it's, a really tough environment. Part of the problem is, and I will talk about testing in a little bit, the testing environment has changed, but what hasn't changed is the grading environment. So between 1990, when many of us who are parent age were applying to college, and now in the past about 30-ish years, the bell curve that shows the average GPA of graduating high school students has flattened and it's gone up. So when we were in high school, it truly was a bell curve. Some people had A's and B's, a lot of people had C's as an average, and then there were people who had D's, etc. Today, 40% of high school students in the United States graduate with an A average GPA. So the level of competition has shifted, and there's lots of discussion about grade inflation and why that happened, but it is what it is. And so that's basically the pool that you're swimming in. So if you're looking at super competitive ranked colleges who are focusing on grades, that's you have put yourself into a very competitive pool. The flip side is, There are 2,200 four-year colleges out there. There are colleges that are a fit for every single student. I have a student that I worked with this past year who has a sub 3.0 GPA. I have 3 students that I've worked with that are under a 3.0 this year, but this particular one has a 2.8 something. He's already admitted to 7 colleges. Why? Because we looked and we found schools that are a good fit for him, where I knew he was admissible. So, and that's true on the higher side too. If you have a student who's got a perfect, top-notch GPA, that's not to say that they can't go to a school where the average is 3.7, right? So it's really about doing your research and finding the right fit. And I will talk about how you can go about doing that. So just an overview of what I want to cover. What do colleges consider in the admission process? What can you be doing now if you have a child in 9th or 10th or even 11th grade to improve that, chance for next year? And what does fit really mean? Anytime you talk to someone who does what I do, your school counselor or an independent counselor, we will talk about fit. And I think it's important for you to understand what that means. And then I'm going to talk about some of the things that have changed this year because of COVID. Excuse me. Okay, so let me tell you the origin of this slide. Every year, there's an organization called the National Association for College Admission Counseling. It's kind of like the umbrella group. All the colleges in the country are a member, many high schools are a member, many independent counselors are a member. It's a great organization for advocacy, for access for students to go to college, but for us, we get tons of information from them. Every year, they put out a survey. They ask all of the member colleges, how did you make your decisions this year? What are you basing your decisions on? And every year they put out a report, and this chart is, or this list is basically a compilation of their responses. And I will tell you, in the time that I've been doing this, in the last 10 years, this list has not changed. And this is a ranked order list. So grades are always the most important thing that colleges are looking for. Now, I say this and students kind of groan when I say this, but when I say grades and when we talk about GPA, here's what we mean. We mean 9 through 11, cumulative, unweighted. Let me keep going because I know you don't like that unweighted thing, but 9 through 11, almost every college in the country, except for the UCs and the Cal States, and I live in California, so a lot of the students I work with apply to those schools. Every other college in the country looks at 9th grade. They care what you take, they care what grades you get. But they're specifically looking at the 5 core academic courses, right? So that's math, science, English, foreign language, and social studies. Those are the courses that they care about. Your volleyball grade does not count in your GPA. They don't care what you got in volleyball. They don't care what you got in culinary arts. Some schools don't care what you got in the visual and performing arts. Again, in California, our state schools do count the visual and performing arts in the core GPA. But most other colleges, they're only looking at those 5 academic core areas. Now, unweighted, you heard me say unweighted, right? Unweighted means on a 4.0 scale, it means an A is an A and a B is a B. So I tell people this all the time. When your kiddo tells you, I got a B, but it was in an honors class, so it's just like an A, I say, do me a favor, dial my phone number and hand them the phone, and I will tell them a B is not just like an A is an A B is a B. They're nothing alike, right? I don't know if you can see in my tiny little picture. They are nothing alike. An A is an A B is a B. If you got a B, that's fine. It is fine to get a B in an honors or an AP course, but don't tell me it's just like an A because someone else actually got an A in that same honors or AP course. Remember, 40% of the country, A average. So when I explain the whole unweighted situation, a lot of times kids say to me, why did I take all those honors and AP courses? Why did I kill myself to take those courses then? Because the second thing on this list is rigor. The second thing on the list, the number 2 thing that colleges look for is rigor. Why? Because they're college and they want to see that you are challenging yourself and doing the best you can in the hardest classes available to you. Now, how do they know what's available to me, you might say? Well, there's a document. I think I might have talked about this later in the presentation actually, but there's a document in that travels with your transcript called the school profile. If you look on your high school website, you will probably be able to find it. It's called the school profile and it gives colleges that context of what was available to you. So most school profiles will give an average GPA, an average test score. Most of them indicate which honors and AP classes are available. Most of them indicate how many students take how many AP classes and exams, and it'll give average exam scores. So it'll tell you basically what percentage of the students, who took that class passed the exam. So again, it's just context. And so colleges really they're not just looking, in a vacuum, they're really looking at you in the context of what you had available to you and how everyone else was performing. And that school profile is basically what helps them build that context. Okay, so grades, course rigor, again, GPA and sometimes rank. Some high schools rank, many don't, and it's fine if you're at a school that doesn't rank. And you can see test scores with the two big red asterisks, and I will talk about that in a little bit. Test scores have been an important part, but just a part of the process, the admission process at many colleges. However, before this year, there were a couple hundred colleges. There were more than that, but there were a couple hundred non-art schools. Mostly art schools don't care about your test scores. There were a couple hundred academic colleges that did not consider, or were happy to not consider, test scores as a part of the admission process. Obviously this year, many colleges, basically almost every college in the country, has gone to a test optional format. That was for the class of 2021. So again, I'll talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like in the future. Now, those first 4 items, and again, I didn't put these in this order. This is the order that they come up in reality when the colleges answer the questionnaire. But these first 4 items are kind of on the objective side, right? You could argue that grades aren't so objective, but but they're numbers. The next group is much more subjective. It's teacher recommendations, it's extracurricular activities and leadership, and it's essays. It's really the way you describe yourself and the things that you do outside the classroom and the way other people describe you. And every year when I'm just getting started with my juniors, actually everyone on our team does this. We pull up the actual letter of recommendation form that teachers fill out for students. It's not just a free form letter, right? There's an actual form that teachers fill out. And our students are often very surprised at the things that their teachers are rating them on. So it's things like maturity and leadership and respect for authority and reaction to setbacks. They're judging you on all of these things, how well you communicate with your peers and how well you are respected by others. These are all the things that teachers are looking for as they are writing your letter of recommendation. So we think it's important for you to know what teachers are looking for. And what that means is you don't always have to get a letter of recommendation from a teacher who gave you an A. It's almost sometimes just as good or maybe better to get a letter of recommendation from a teacher in whose class you earned a B, but you worked really, really hard for that B, because that teacher will probably know how hard you worked. And the more you reach out and communicate with the teacher and try to connect with them, not just in the school context, but maybe they're an advisor for one of your extracurricular activities, so they see another side of you. Colleges are really looking for the human being that you are. They're really trying to find out, who are we inviting into our community? And letters of recommendations really help them see that from someone else's perspective. But essays, very, very important, and extracurricular activities, very important, and I'll talk about that in a bit too. And then finally, this is the part that's the most frustrating. There is a part of the process that you don't have any control over. And these are very simple examples as far as athletics or arts, but colleges have institutional priorities. They have pressures from their president and their board of directors or board of trustees to fill certain gaps that they have on their campus. It may be geographic, it may be racial diversity, it may be a whole bunch of different factors. And these are not things that the colleges will tell us in advance, and they certainly aren't going to tell you. And it's just one of those things where you have to say, you know what, I have no control, and so I'm going to let go. And I know that's really hard. Okay, so All right, so I want to chat really quickly about holistic admission. This is a term that you may have heard, but if you haven't, it's a very important term in college admissions. And basically what it means is colleges are going to look at all of those things that I just talked about, but they get to decide which one they place the most weight on. They get to decide what's the most important to them. I'll give you a perfect example. The UC system has 9 undergraduate campuses, right? It's one application for all 9 campuses, but when you apply to multiple UCs, your information goes to each of those offices. They each decide separately as a campus, right? So UC Santa Barbara has told us that their process is 50% academic and 50% non-academic. I would say, for those of you in California, UC Santa Barbara is the only UC campus that gives us those numbers. Every other campus, it's kind of, you know, they have a list of 14 factors they consider, but they don't tell us what they consider most. And this is holistic. This is subjective decision making, and this is their prerogative, both at the public and private university level. What it means, though, is there is no score you can get, there is no GPA you can have that will automatically guarantee that you're going to get in somewhere. It's a function of the college admissions people deciding how to build their class. That's what they call it. They call it building a class, and they see it as building a community. And so there could very well be people with perfect grades and perfect test scores, but imagine a highly selective university filled with kids with perfect grades and perfect test scores, all of whom played tennis and the violin. It would be such a boring place. And so instead, they're looking you know, for kids with a variety of talents. And that's why holistic admission is kind of a double-edged sword, right? It seems like a great thing. We're building our community. We're inviting the people in who we think will help our community grow. But at the same time, what it means is your student with top grades and top test scores might not get in somewhere that someone with lower grades and test scores could be admitted, and you never get to know why. They just bring something different to the community. So it's a little bit on the frustrating side, but it's important for you to understand how holistic admission works. Okay, so what should we be doing now? This screen is supposed to be sort of self-explanatory, and the reason for that is, what was the #1 thing on the list? Grades. Grades are always and will continue to be the #1 most important factor for colleges as they're determining their class. So grades are what you should focus on. I will tell you, when I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk with families who have 8th grade students, sort of as they're deciding what they might want to take in 9th grade, and as they're talking about activities, I say, you know, our packages basically start in the middle of 10th grade. And the reason is there's literally nothing I can say to a 9th grader, to a 9th or early 10th grader, that is worth you paying someone money for. You should be getting the best grades you can. That's what your goal for 9th grade should be. Take the hardest classes you can and get the best grades you can. That's the most important thing. Guess what? 9th, 10th grade, same thing. Take the hardest classes you can while still being able to perform at the highest level, right? So that I'm not saying you should take every AP class offered or every honors class offered. I'm saying you should look at the menu and you should say, if I took 3 honors classes this year, could I get A's in all of them? And A is always the goal, right? Could I get A's in all of them? If I took 3 honors classes or 3 AP classes, would the workload be such that I wouldn't be able to do my best in each and every class? Then maybe you take 2 instead of 3. So this is a decision that you want to make when you know, early or late in the year for the following year, when you have time to really think about it. And be honest with your student. AP classes are a lot of work. Community college classes are a lot of work. They are highly, highly respected, but they are a lot of work. And your goal, again, is to do as well as you possibly can. So again, the #1 and #2 thing on the list, grades and rigor. So if it were me, that's how I would approach high school. Start in 9th grade, and I would make a 4-year plan if you can. Getting to know teachers, really important. Letting them get to know you, really important. I know in the Zoom universe, it's very difficult, but it's really important that teachers know the human being that you are, so that they can start to articulate on your behalf how you would contribute to a college community. Activities, again, very important. What colleges are looking for is depth of involvement. They're not looking for students who are a member of 10 different clubs and just a member. They're really looking for students who have some kind of level of responsibility. Now, let me help you take a step back from that. It does not mean that you have to found your own club. It does not mean that you have to start a nonprofit when you're in 10th grade. It does not mean that you have to be the president of something. What leadership is taking some kind of responsibility. So even if you are a regular old member, if there's a project, a fundraiser, a community activity, a volunteer, a community cleanup, a beach cleanup, if there's an activity that you can take responsibility for, that's leadership, right? And so the deeper you are involved in different activities, the more likely it will be that you will have some level of responsibility, right? So again, we're looking for depth of involvement, not breadth. We're not looking for students who've joined 10 different clubs. If you are listening to this and you have a junior, so right now it's the middle of the school year. If you have a junior and they are not in any activities, I would have them start an activity now, because it does not look so great when students are submitting their applications in the fall of their senior year and they have a whole bunch of activities that they just started in 12th grade. That sort of looks like, oh, I kind of forgot that I was applying to college and I realized that I look sort of bad. And I'm thinking about it way too late, so I'm just gonna throw my name onto a whole bunch of lists. That's not so good. It's much better to have a 4-year activity is better than a 3-year activity, is better than a 2-year activity, but everything beats a 1-year activity. So again, depth means choose activities that you can really stay with for a number of years. And then finally, and I'll go into much more depth on this, we're looking for you to create a balanced, I hate it when there's typos in my presentations, balanced with a D on the end of it, well-researched college list. Okay. So let's talk about fit, because fit is going to help you create that balanced list. So how do we know if a college is a good fit? Well, it has the major that you're thinking about. What if I'm undecided? Then you should start thinking about a couple different things that you could be interested in, right? It doesn't matter if they're related to each other. It doesn't matter if it's design and environmental science. But you should look for colleges that have majors that you are interested in. I will link under this video when I post it, and I will send to everyone here. I made a little video about how to research a college. And people are often surprised that the last thing that you need to look at when you research a college is the admissions stats. Don't worry about the admissions stats. Let's worry about whether or not it's a good fit for you first. Does it have the major that you're interested in? Does it have clubs that you're interested in? Why do we need that? Because, by the way, when you're in college, you will be in the classroom 15% of the time. That means you'll be out of the classroom 85% of the time. What are we going to do during all that time? We got to hang out with people. We got to do stuff, right? We have to find our people. And the way to know if you found your people is that you go to the list of clubs and organizations on a college website and you find the ones that you like. If they have clubs you like, that means they have people who like things that you like. That means we found your people. This always makes me laugh, but when you go, when we're back to the point where we're visiting colleges again, when you go on college tours, college tour guides will tell you, oh, we have this many clubs on campus. But if you can't find a club that does, that does the stuff that you like to do, you can find 5 friends and start your own club. And what I say to my clients is, I don't want you to start your own club. I want there to be clubs there that have people that already like the things that you like. To me, that's how I know we found your people. It's not that I really don't want you to start a club. I just don't want you to have to start a club. Okay, then we start getting into some of the nitty-gritty details like size, like distance from home, like weather, right? A lot of times I literally pull up the map of the United States with students. And when I work with students in the Northeast who live where it snows, they're fine with snow, right? Sometimes they want sun, so we look south, we look west. When I work with my California kids, I pull up a map and they think they want Boston, they think they want Chicago, but then I say, it snows there, right? And they're like, ooh, oh yeah, but it's just a little, no, it's like 3 months worth of, 5 months worth of cold snow, and you'll have to buy some closed-toed shoes. So these are all things that you want to consider as you are as you are trying to find your fit. It is perfectly fine to give yourself some geographic limitations. I would also consider size though, and it's an important discussion because most high school students will automatically compare the size of a college to the size of their high school. And here's what I would say. Just because a college, if you go to a large public high school and it has 4,000 students, I work with a number of students who are in that situation, you might think that a college that has 2,500 or 3,500 students seems small. But I'm going to tell you something. The number of students might seem small, but when you spread them out over a campus that I promise you is significantly larger than your high school, it will feel much larger than your high school. So don't necessarily cut the small schools off just because you go to a larger high school. Think about what you get in a small school. You get smaller classes, you get more connection with your professors, you could get better opportunities and quicker opportunities to do research. So for example, if you are thinking about medical school, if you're thinking about law school, you will probably have closer relationships with your professors and longer relationships with the same professors at a smaller school than at a large research university. Okay, college fit, more stuff. I have a massive frog in my throat today. Sorry, guys. Okay, this is where I say very gently and with a smile on my face, a lot of the work needs to be done by the student. The student really needs to take ownership. So for example, a lot of times I'll go to a client's house and the mom will walk out with this book, which is a great book, but it's this thick and it's this big and it's heavy, and there will be 54 sticky notes sticking out of the top, and there'll be another 70 sticking out the side. And the mom will say, here, I started the list for you. And what I say to that is, let's just get rid of those sticky notes and let's create our own, right? The student needs to do the research, and you can use that book. You can research online. There's tons of websites that we use. I like Niche. I like College Prowler. I actually like the College Board's college search function. You can get tons of information online. I like College Data. I'll talk a little bit more about College Data when I talk about the money side. All of these websites are, have great information, but I'll tell you something. I also have students go to YouTube and watch videos that the school posts either themselves or that students post about the school. Because again, why? Because we're trying to find your people. And how do we find your people? We watch videos that people put up that aren't necessarily school propaganda. So honestly, YouTube is one of my big research opportunities these days. Okay, so you should be, your student should be doing research. They should be talking to students who attend. You can always reach out to an admission office and ask them to connect you with a real student. Most of them you don't even have to ask. There's opportunities on their website to connect with students. This next one is really important. Our team always has our students come up with a list of things that you really like about each college that's going to go on their list. And it cannot have anything to do with ranking or reputation or sports or location, because these are all things that you are not going to participate in. These things are not going to impact you when you're actually there. What will impact you is the academics, the clubs, the people, the kind of people who are there. Those are the things that you should really be looking to connect with when you're doing your college research. And then after you've done all of that stuff, now we go to the admissions office. Now we look at the admitted student data and we try to figure out if we're in the range. Okay, so the biggest inhibitor to people creating a balanced list is they think that if they've never heard of a college, it must be crappy. And I'm not going to click this link, but I'm going to send it out to you and I'm going to tell you what it is. Every year, Harvard Law School publishes a list of the undergraduate institutions from which their first-year law students graduated, and you would be shocked. There are schools on this list, so the list always falls into two categories. It's usually about half of them you'll recognize, and half of them you won't even recognize. And so whenever a parent says to me, oh, we can't have that school on the list, no one's ever heard of it, no one's heard of it, I say, you know what? Harvard Law School has heard of it. And this is an example of the fact that you, as a parent, probably don't know all 2,200 colleges that are out there. You don't know all of their names. You don't know all of their reputations. You don't know how they're viewed by graduate programs, by the working world. So whenever a parent says to me, oh, you'll never get a job if you go to blah, blah, blah school, because no one's ever heard of it. I say, I have to tell you, I think you're wrong, and I push back. And I promise you that people who read resumes for a living, they've heard of many, many, many more colleges than any of us have. But the funny thing is, when I pull up this Harvard Law School list, there's always a school on the list that I haven't heard of. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but I've visited somewhere between 400 and 450 different colleges in the last 10 years. I've heard of a lot, and there's still a few that I haven't heard of. But Harvard Law School has. But the funny thing is, the other side of the list, the ones you have heard of, they're names like Arizona State University and Boise State University. They're schools that don't make you think, oh, wow, kids who go there are totally going to go to Harvard Law School. But they do. They really do. And it's really a function of the reality that graduate programs are looking for students who rise to the top in their college experience and do something interesting. I mean, think about what you're doing in high school. They're looking for students who rise to the top and distinguish themselves among their peers. And that is possible to do at a school like Arizona State University. It is possible to do basically anywhere. Every school has a top, right? The flip side of it is, and Malcolm Gladwell has a brilliant piece on this, it isn't always a good idea to go to the school that is the best school that you get into, to go to the school that has the top ranking that you get into, because it might be more difficult to distinguish yourself. And not only could that be bad for your future graduate school aspirations, it could actually be bad for your psyche to be surrounded by people who are constantly trying to push you down so that they can stay at the top where they're used to being. So, you know, one of the things that you should be considering when you're creating a college list with your student is, how much competition are you comfortable with? I have students who would not be comfortable in an uber competitive environment. And so we take that into consideration. I'll post the Malcolm Gladwell video as well. So this is where when we're helping our students build their lists, we are very gentle about this, but this is why everyone who does what we do, every school counselor, every independent counselor, every college admission counselor you will ever meet will tell you that balance is key. And there is nothing worse. I literally just had a meeting today with a family whose daughter did not get into her early decision school. There is nothing worse than seeing your child not get what they want. And when you're aiming for only top schools, you are setting yourself up for disaster. So, and the other thing for me that's really difficult, and I say this, you know, speaking to you as a parent, if you make your child believe that there is only one successful outcome to their college search process, and if it's the same, you know, if you're repeating that same Ivy name, if you're saying UCLA, if you're saying Stanford, if you're saying Penn, if you're saying that same name over and over and over again, what your child is internalizing is that that's the gold standard. And if I don't get that, everything else is second choice. And that is bad for the psyche as well. So balanced list. That's why we try to create balanced lists. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple things that are changing, that have changed and are changing in our COVID universe. So testing. Testing is, let's see, do I have a little sign on this? So testing is something that, again, it used to be a part of most colleges' process. And for the class of 2021, most colleges, there are very few, the Florida State universities are not test optional, strangely, but pretty much every other college in the country is test optional this year. Now, let me tell you the difference. There's test optional and there's test blind. So test optional means we don't require you to send scores, but if you want to send us scores, we'll look at them and we will take it in as one tiny piece. I'll tell you, I was watching a webinar. One of the participants was the University of Maryland. And she said, the representative said, there are 27 different data points. that we consider, and testing is one of them. So test optional means you can send your test scores and we will consider them. They are one tiny little piece of data that we consider. Test blind is different. Test blind means don't send us your scores. If you send us your scores, we will not look at them. We will shred them. We will throw them away. So test blind is truly, truly level playing field, right? Test optional, you could legitimately wonder in the back of your mind, will I have an advantage if I submit a test score if it's good? You can legitimately wonder that. I'm not here to answer that question. I can't answer that question. The joke is the answer to every single question you could ask me is it depends. And so my answer to that question would be, it depends on what college you're talking about. The issue with test optional, and the reason that I put this, this little chart here. So I can't even remember what school this is for. Obviously this is a very good school. The lavender bar here is the middle 50% ACT scores. What does middle 50% mean? I always do this with my high school students, and when they haven't taken stats, they don't always get this right. Middle 50% means 25% got higher, 25% got lower. It's the half in the middle. And this is the middle 50% of the students who were enrolled, so admitted and enrolled at the college. If you applied to this college and this was your score, this is a real student from a real school, I just don't know who or where. If you applied with this score, you would be below the middle 50%. It doesn't mean he's not going to get in or she's not going to get in. It just means that the student is below the middle 50% of test scores. But the good news in a test optional universe is we just get to cover this up. We get to hide it. So what does that mean? If this student had straight A's, and applied to a highly competitive, a school with the national average ACT score is 20, which is going to be right around here. It's actually like 19. So obviously this student is far, far above average, and this school is far, far, way up here above average, like basically here. If a student in the past with this score had applied to this school, the chances would be very, very slim. But if you get to cover up these scores and not show them, and you have straight A's, you are, putting yourself into a pool in which you could be very, very competitive. So what does that mean? If you're applying to highly, highly competitive schools this year or in a test optional year, it is easy to see how the pool would increase in that kind of year, right? And that's what we're expecting for this year. We're expecting that the pools for the most selective of colleges to increase. Why? Because students who have really good grades, but whose test scores in previous years would have basically inhibited them from applying, they don't have that inhibition anymore because they look just as good as long as they don't send their test scores. Here's the bad news. And by the way, this is the score distribution of the ACT for the the high school class of 2016. So it's a couple years old, but I promise you it has not shifted to the right. 36 is the highest score you can get on the ACT. It's literally, the top 0.5% of test scores, right? And again, the bell curve of grades used to look like this, but it does not anymore. It's way up here now. And that's why colleges have been taking tests into consideration. So the fact that they are shifting away from tests, and the big question mark, if you have a 9th, 10th, 11th grader, is we don't know what they're going to do in the coming years. We know, for example, I know that the University of California system is test blind, and they intend to remain that way at least for 4 years, at least through current 9th graders. There's some discussion about what they'll do after that. Many colleges who went test optional this year, who announced that they would be test optional, many of them announced that they would do a 3-year pilot program and see, what their classes look like. And the truth is, 1 year of test optional doesn't really give them, each college, the data that they really need to know if admitting students without test scores gets them the kind of community that they want to continue to have. So I'm not surprised that that many colleges have announced a 3-year, or some of them longer, test pilot program, just to see a couple cycles to see how it works. I know that for you, depending on what your student is, I know that that's very frustrating. And so what our team is doing as far as the class of 2022 and 23, at the moment, we're advising that they should prepare to take either an SAT or ACT. We know that every college in the country is not test blind right now. And we know that a significant number of them that are test optional will still consider tests. We also have an assumption and of course a hope that starting in the spring, it'll be safe to take tests again. And the availability will go back to hopefully something closer to what it was before. Okay, so that's the testing situation. So unfortunately, the answer to that is I probably didn't shed too much light on it, and I might have just made it even a little more opaque for you, so apologies. The other big issue for the class of 21 and the class of 22 is campus visits have basically all been canceled for the last 9 months. Many colleges are now announcing what their spring of 21 plans are. Some are coming back, but many of them are not. I do know of some colleges that are welcoming visitors to campus, which is really nice. The flip side of that, though, is even if you can't, and this is, by the way, this is Hopkins, my alma mater, on the left, and this is Harvard on the right. Even if you can't visit in person, colleges have done an amazing job of putting tons of information online and having virtual tours, live campus walkthroughs, live discussions with admissions folks. So they have put more information than ever before out there. It's available. They want to connect with you. And this is where I would say the balanced list comes back into play. Don't just cherry pick, the top 3 schools on your list. You can do all of this from your computer, right? You don't have to like schedule out what, taking the train to somewhere and where you're going to be on what day. You could do 3 in one day. So no reason not to do that. We have our juniors researching basically 1 college a week. That's kind of standard for what we like to have them do. 1 college a week is a good rate of research. It doesn't all get stuck in their head. We also have all of our students taking notes when they're researching colleges, either live events with admissions folks or even just researching the college websites. And I have a PDF document that's like a virtual college checklist. And I'll send that out to everyone and publish it here in this post as well. So again, it's really important. Colleges are really looking to connect with you. And the reason that it's important is when the actual application process happens in the fall to winter of the student's senior year. Yes, many colleges are on the same common application. It's called the common application. And yes, they will write 1 main essay that all of the colleges will get, but many colleges ask additional questions. We call them supplementals. And many times they are some version of we call it the why us essay. Why are we a good fit for you? Why do you want to come here? And it's not, that essay can't be, here's how much I love you. Here's all the great things about you. They know how great they are. What they really need to know is, why are you a good fit for us? What can you bring to our community that fits in with the way our community is and maybe aspires to be? And so as your student is doing that research, that's really the question that we like to have our students answer is, why are you such a good fit? So I say to my students, basically all through 11th grade, as they're doing their research, imagine that you're actually writing the why us essay, right? It's not about telling them all the things that they already know about themselves. It's about telling them why you fit into that community. So personally, I think that the whole situation with campus visits is kind of a blessing in disguise. I think it's saved high school parents thousands and thousands of dollars, because you don't have to get on a plane and schlep everywhere. You can literally just schedule it on your computer. So I say take advantage of that. Okay, and this is the hardest one. This is the one that I think a lot of students are kind of the most freaked out about, right? My lacrosse season got canceled. My ballet season, I have a student for whom this is the first year since she was 3 where there will not be a nutcracker. Everything in their life, the play got canceled, everything in their life got canceled. So the question is, what can you do to pivot while maintaining your sanity, by the way? So again, remember, I don't want them to do 10 activities. I want them to do 1 or 2 activities, but really deeply. So what if you were a hospital volunteer, which now is obviously not an option, what could you do that maybe has the same theme? Again, we're talking about helping people. We're talking maybe about a medical environment. What could you do? It might be taking a class on Coursera. It might be making a series of YouTube videos that introduces your classmates to CPR, right? What could you do that that you can do safely, most of the time from your home, most of the time alone, unless you have siblings, that will help colleges see that you still wanted to use your time outside of school in a productive way. I know this is hard, and this is the challenge for the class of 21, and honestly the class of 22 and even 23. They're going to have big chunks of interruption. The good news is colleges totally understand this. Literally it's happened to everybody in the country, everybody in the world. So they're not looking for, continuity the way they used to be. What they're really looking for is ingenuity. Ooh, I'm going to write that down. Ingenuity instead of continuity. Sometimes you say things and you're like, wow, that's pretty smart. As my computer shakes as I write. There we go. So I've had all of my students think about, if I'm artistic, what can I do that's artistic that, since the play wasn't happening, how do I channel that energy in a different direction? I know it's hard, but this is the challenge. Okay, so quick recap. Gentle prep. Really, really think about your priorities for college. Do your research. Actually, that's the video on how to research a college. And I'll send this out to everybody, and all the links are clickable. Really let your student be in the driver's seat as far as doing the college research. Let them tell you what they want. Don't use this as an opportunity to relive, the time when you were applying to XYZ in high school. And then activities. Netflix is not an activity, unfortunately. And again, really think about who you are, what you have to offer, and what your interests are, and let the extracurricular activities be driven by that. Just a word about cost, because I know everyone's really freaked out about cost. I have a whole separate webinar, and I'll put a link to that. It's like 35 minutes about cost and how financial aid works. Just know that the sticker price is not necessarily the price that you will pay. Many private colleges give really nice merit awards. So yeah, like twice as much. So sticker price is definitely not your final cost. Like a lot of times people come to me and they say, we really want to stay in state because it's cheaper. And we say, we have clients all over the country going to out-of-state publics and private schools paying about what they would pay for their in-state public university. So it's really about doing your homework first. And the big part of that is knowing which colleges give money and which colleges do not give money. So the flip side of what I just said about private colleges giving more money is that there are definitely some private colleges, and I will tell you, they are the ones at the top of the ranking list that do not give merit money. Do not give merit money. If you get in, that's the gift. And you would plan to pay full price. So if you don't want to pay what that full price is, you really should be looking at colleges that do give merit money. There are tons out there. And like I said, this other webinar, I go through sort of showing you how to find what that is. This is actually, this kind of illustrates that point. So this chunk of money right here, about 25% of the money that helps kids pay for college comes from the colleges themselves, right? You want to go here. This is where the money is. So every time you see this little sliver right here, this red sliver that says private and employer grants, every time people say, can we get a private scholarship? You can get a private scholarship, but here's the thing. Usually they're one-time scholarships. They're very low dollars. They could be $350 one time. But here, this money, like I have a student who just got into, what was it, Kalamazoo College? It was a private liberal arts college, Juniata College, with a $30,000 a year scholarship, a year times 4, right? So it's renewable all 4 years. That's why this number is so large. So you really want to go where the money is, and this is where the money is. Go to the colleges that give money. I promise you in the other webinar, I promise that I explained this really well. I feel like I've taken enough of your time actually. So I'm gonna tell you that if all of this has caused you anxiety, if you need hand-holding, that's what we do. We have a whole bunch of stuff that we do depending on when you start with us. The earlier you start, the better. Frankly, the earlier people start with us, the better their lists are, the more well-researched their lists are. We do help students all the way through the admission process, including essays, including literally sitting with them, filling out applications. Sometimes we serve the role of standing in between mom and dad and students, so there's no nagging and no need for this. Our job is not to write essays. Our job is not to get you in. Our job is not to make a phone call to people we know. Our job is to help you find the colleges that are really the best fit for you. And that's why we spend so much time on the road. That's why I visited 450 colleges, because it helps me suggest colleges to the students that I work with. So if you feel like you need help, we have a team of 12 counselors. We would be happy to help you. What we usually like to do is get a little information from the parent and figure out which of the counselors on our team is the best fit. We have counselors who have special training in working with athletes, working with performing arts students, working with students who have specialized needs, learning challenges. And again, we really focus on finding the best fit. So I will end it there. This is our information. Again, I invite you to like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter or sign up for our newsletter, which you can do on our website on the Contact Us button. And I will stop sharing now. And I'm going to stop the recording. And again, if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching. And if you have questions, please feel free to post them, and we're happy to get back to you.